Hey neighbor, welcome back to quarantine. Shit, that felt way too real. Let's try that again. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and apparently everyone's making an album during lockdown, so just 9 months removed from her debut album Petals for Armor, the Paramore leader Hayley Williams is firing off her sophomore effort, Flowers for Vases, Descansos. Petals was a pretty fucking killer solo drop. Obviously, if you've watched me before, you know Paramore have consistently ranked among my all-time favorite bands, so maybe it's like getting surprised that a light turns on when you flip the switch, like duh, you liked it John, it's Hayley. I wouldn't give someone a pass just for their namesake. To me, the reason it worked was due to the thoroughly fleshed out ideas, intimate vocals, eclectic instrumentation, and her making a batch of 15 songs that somehow all felt like family. But a follow-up so quick to that? That definitely made me nervous. I'd heard the rumors about something coming sooner rather than later in Camp Hayley, but I in no way saw another full-length album landing this fast. Hayley Williams wrote, sung, and played all of the instruments for every single song on Vases, which is a career first for her. She jokingly mentioned a few times last fall that she was out to record her own version of Folklore, obviously nodding to the first Taylor Swift Quarantine album if you've been living under a rock, which actually might be a pretty valid excuse given the past 12 months, but basically that could have gone one of two ways, and the way it went down leaves a lot to be desired, and not suddenly either. Okay, hopefully last time I'm gonna connect the two because I don't want to spend the entire review talking about her other album, but Petals for Armor was a project that was in progress for over a year, and for that reason, I think it sounds really lived in and complete. Flowers for Vases, according to Hayley, is a prequel album of sorts to Petals for Armor, so the song topics we're hearing about almost entirely take place in more of a distant past, not every song, but most of them. Childhood trauma, parents, divorce, burnout, passion, essentially these are all topics that she's covering on the new one, and she's like crawling out on a limb the morning after a rainstorm to send off these handwritten messages to the sky to be taken really wherever the wind wants them to go. Vases very much reminded me of two artists that are in fact not Taylor Swift. Not everything's about Tay-Tay as much as I do adore Folklore. I mean, I guess it's inevitable that some fans are gonna draw that comparison, but I think that's really more of the placebo effect, given that Hayley herself brought up that album. If you're like me, your ears will hear something much more in line with the frosty musings of the British folk artist Laura Marling, or the tender isolation of an album like Sea Change by Beck. Nigel Godrich produced that album, now that I think of it, and if we get out the tinfoil hats, Hayley is a huge Radiohead fan, Nigel produces all of Radiohead's albums, Nigel produced Sea Change, and now Hayley's new album is out here sounding like an ode to all of that. Is this at all attempting to be a pop record? No, and after she leaked the details of the album, I wasn't expecting this to be Petals Part 2. This is a well-intentioned but mostly inconsequential run-of-the-mill offering that rarely leaves a permanent mark, rather it folds the top corner of the page as you think, maybe I'll come back to that later, but in reality, most of us probably won't. Bad isn't what I'm trying to hint at, because I don't think Flowers for Vases Descansos is a bad album. Reflective, isolated, simple, folky, emotional? Yes to that whole list, along with other adjectives I could probably come up with if I wanted to, but to oversimplify and play devil's advocate here, is it really that interesting? No, it is truly not. And at times, it really can be a boring drag, as the low-key nature of the project sort of backfires. Hayley leaked the album's single, if we're gonna call it that, to a fan by driving a CD to their house in Nashville. The name of that track is My Limb, and it's probably the most polished, proper song on the record. That sent fans buzzing about this horror, spooky vibe for the next project more akin to the rage of Simmer, but I think the rabbit went from teething on a shotgun to sipping a cup of warm tea, if you feel me. There aren't really too many lyrical moments with that kind of aggressive bite, and not that I don't appreciate her vulnerability, it's just that much of what she wrote and played feels very average. This is no fun. It sucks when I have these moments as a critic, where I'm always gonna be honest about how I feel, but also, I mean, obviously I wanted to love this, but I don't. Unfortunately, the title of a song on Vases kinda condenses my thoughts to a single word: Inordinary. Hayley's vocals sound fantastic. Those are not the problem here at all. It's more so the lack of forward motion on about half of these tracks that make it hard to see as having a long shelf life. I get that I've been pretty open about my gripes up to this point, and I don't want that to be the only takeaway, so let me run down a few of the key moments that had me feeling a little bit more tethered to the foresty vibe she laid down. My Limb is probably the best song in terms of imagery outside of maybe Over Those Hills, but hold that thought because we've got an amputation in progress. A lot of this album deals with Hayley's traumas, including a past marriage that ended in divorce, so forgiving the fact that My Limb can get overly repetitive, with those words being said a lot throughout the song, the witchy potion in the mix definitely keeps my ears glued. Over Those Hills sounds majestic, inspired, and hopeful as we kind of gaze out the window with her on a cold but sunny morning. You can feel the colors of this track, and I love that. It stuck with me on a personal level, as did the following cut, Good Grief.
Good grief.
There's a few interpretations I think you could walk away with after hearing this one, but to keep it more ambiguous, I think it's mainly about just accepting that there's not always a positive takeaway in a situation. There's always someone that's going to be saying, well, you're stronger now, or else you live and you learn and you got something from this, and sometimes you just don't get that net positive. The piano syncopates nicely with that acoustic guitar, and I really do think this is one of the better songs on the album. Trigger is extremely bland and predictable, and the metaphors she uses are done to death, as is that build up to the chorus. It just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Inordinary feels like staring at a dormant volcano waiting for something to happen. Keep You Right Here tosses around like an abandoned lifeboat in the ocean, and there's several others that just do absolutely nothing for me. I mean, I almost forgot the song Wait On existed until I glanced over at the track list. But hey, let's end it on a positive note, because the best song is also the last one. It seems pretty crystal clear that this is connected to the final song on Petals, at least in some form because of the nods to her current relationship, whoever that might be. I heard it was like the lighting assistant or something. Lover hits that sweet spot between reality and a dream, something further aided by those romantic keys and the peppered drums that I really wish we had seen more of on Vases. More percussion, please! Around the 2-minute mark, we get a perfect little guitar bell that sees Hayley experiencing maybe some sort of early morning rebirth amidst a sea of more lavish instrumentation. I wish it had gone on for a little bit longer, maybe a bit more progressive, I don't know, something like Future off of the self-titled, but then it just kind of closes out quickly. A lot of the songs on this album do that, but this is still a fantastic cherry topper at the end of the sundae. Wasn't really feeling this one all that much. I gave it a few extra days to try and let it sink in, and if anything, I liked it more at first than I do now. I don't see this as having a very long shelf life. Petals was superior in really every way, and to put it bluntly, Hayley Williams is capable of a lot more. I'm giving Flowers for Vases a 2.5 out of 5, and now I'm just gonna patiently wait for that next Paramore album. Thanks for watching my review. Remember, it's all just my opinion, so I would love to know what you thought in the comments down below. While you're down there, maybe slap that like button, subscribe for the love of music, and if you want to see me review Petals for Armor, then tap this card below me right here. A special thank you goes out to my $75 a month patron, Sombre, artist Barenfeld, and Dayton Hamilton, and other than that, I'll be back soon with more on ARTV.